From KVUE News in Austin, you're watching Texas This Week with Ashley Goodo.
Good Sunday morning. For years, the Office of the Texas Attorney General has prided itself on defending the unborn. And Texas lawmakers have backed that up, putting in statute that unborn children are people. But in a new lawsuit against the state, the AG's office is now arguing a fetus doesn't clearly have rights. More on that in just a minute, but first, let's get to the 3 things you need to know in Texas politics. Governor Greg Abbott ceremoniously signed a slate of property tax bills Wednesday aimed at saving homeowners hundreds of dollars on their property tax bills. Lawmakers in the House and Senate debated for months before landing on an $18 billion plan. As long as voters approve the measure this November, the bills will reduce the school tax rate, increase the homestead exemption, cap the taxable value on non-homestead properties valued at $5 million or less, double the franchise tax exemption, and add 3 elected positions to appraisal boards. Texas leaders were warned not to put buoys in the Rio Grande, but did it anyway. That's according to a new report from the Dallas Morning News. That warning came from the International Boundary and Water Commission, which is made up of Mexican and U.S. authorities that manage boundary and water treaties along the border. According to documents obtained by the Dallas Morning News, the commission raised concerns about the state's activity on the border as far back as December. Governor Greg Abbott has argued Texas has sovereign authority to defend the border. The federal government argues the state does not, and the Justice Department is suing Texas over the border buoys. A hearing is scheduled for later this month. Meanwhile, a group of Texas Democrats took a trip to the border to see the buoys on Tuesday. After criticizing the governor for installing them, members of Congress said they wanted to see them up close.
Over the last few months, even as border crossings have dropped, Texas Governor Greg Abbott has launched a barbaric campaign of cruelty against migrants, littering the Rio Grande with invisible razor wire and other drowning devices that are designed to injure, maim, and kill families who are just exercising their legal right to seek asylum in the United States.
In November 2021, a Texas prison guard arrived at work for her shift. 7 months pregnant, she started feeling labor pains and told her supervisors. She wasn't allowed to leave for hours. When she finally did get to the hospital, she had a stillbirth. And according to a lawsuit, doctors say that baby would have survived if she had gotten there sooner. She's now suing the state, and Texas is fighting back, in part by saying the fetus in an anti-abortion state doesn't clearly have rights. Jolie McCullough, criminal justice reporter for the Texas Tribune, broke the story and joined me to talk about what she learned. Your latest report is pretty alarming. Tell us what happened with this prison guard.
Right. So this was about 1.5 years ago. In November of 2021, a 7-month pregnant prison officer was working her shift in Abilene, and she felt pains that she thought were contractions. And she quickly alerted her supervisor, saying she needed to get to the hospital. And according to a lawsuit she's filed, she said she was told she was made to wait 2.5 hours before she was allowed to leave. Her supervisor telling her, not believing that she was in labor or any kind, basically saying she just wanted to go home. When she was finally able to leave, she went to the hospital, and doctors, unable to find a fetal heartbeat, rushed her to emergency surgery, and her baby was delivered stillborn.
She and her husband are now suing the state. What are they asking for in this lawsuit?
Right. So they are suing the state. So this happened in November 2021. She had taken some leave after that, and then she filed an internal discrimination complaint within the Texas prison system. And she said, after months of not hearing anything, that is when she and her husband sued the agency in federal court, and they are asking for damages for things like medical costs, for funeral expenses, as well as damages for pain and suffering.
One of the things that I think really stands out in this report, besides obviously this really heart-wrenching story of a family losing their baby, is the response from the AG's office. Tell us about that.
Right. So this lawsuit was first filed last October, and as the state has moved forward, the state of Texas, the Attorney General's office and the Texas Department of Criminal Justice are seeking to have this lawsuit tossed. And part of the reason that they're arguing this is because they're saying, this woman's fetus, the 7-month-old fetus, does not clearly qualify as a person with rights. Which is very stark shift in tone from what is usually the Attorney General's office as one that is known for and self-proclaimed as one of a leader in defending the unborn across the nation.
Right. And you point out in your report that the timing of this is also significant because of Roe v. Wade and the Supreme Court. Talk to us about that piece of this.
Right. So one of the arguments that the state has used, though not the only argument against the lack of possible rights for this fetus, is that they said this happened, as I've said, in November of 2021, 7 months before the U.S. Supreme Court overturned Roe v. Wade. And so one of the arguments that the Attorney General's office has made is that, it's unclear even now if this fetus would have rights as a person, but especially back before the Dobbs decision, which overturned Roe v. Wade, it's less clear, essentially.
Part of the things, not only is this a contrast in the tone from the AG's office, but also from the state's Republican leadership, who has really fought and over the years passed laws in statute to say that this fetus would have rights, right?
Right. We've had, decades now of laws of, pushes from the attorney generals, but in legislation as well, that's really defined in Texas laws, at least, a person as someone basically as an unborn child since conception, since fertilization, very early stages of a pregnancy, they're defining an unborn child as an individual. So it's interesting that in this argument that in the federal court, they're leaning more on, well, Roe v. Wade had said it wasn't necessarily a person, so we can't be held responsible for this death now.
Do you see any political repercussions, coming from the AG's office saying this, arguing this?
I mean, it's unclear at this point. The AG's office has not responded to any of my questions about the story. And what is known is that, legal historians who study fetal rights issues, this is really considered to be, it's expected to be kind of the next step in this post Roe v. Wade world where abortion is now able to be illegal in the state of Texas. And the next step in other states are focusing on when is a person a person? Fetal personhood is this next argument of lawsuits that we're seeing start to bubble up of, do fetuses have rights? And it's something the U.S. Supreme Court has not yet gone into, has purposely avoided ruling on yet. But it's more and more as we're seeing it, there's questions as to how exactly these states that are defenders of the unborn, as they claim, what are they considering in terms of fetal rights, and is it only used for punitive measures such as, someone who performs an abortion could be charged with murder versus providing care for pregnant people for things like this, where this woman is claiming she needed to leave to care for her unborn child.
You can find a link to McCullough's full report on KVUE.com. That's Texas This Week.